Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be learning about some different types of dinosaurs, which is why I've got my dinosaur top on. So, did you know that dinosaurs eat different things? Some dinosaurs have sharp teeth and strong legs, and they eat meat, and they're called a carnivore. Can you do that with me? Carnivore. But some dinosaurs, they eat plants and bushes and trees, and they've got either a long neck or a neck that's close to the ground, and they're called a herbivore. Can you do that with me? Herbivore. The book that we're reading today has two different types of dinosaur. It has a carnivore and a herbivore, and it's called Tyrannosaurus Strip, and it's by Julia Donaldson and illustrated by David Roberts. In a swamp beside the river, where the land was thick with veg, lived a herd of duck-billed dinosaurs who roamed the river's edge. And they hooted up with rivers, and they hooted up with reeds, and they hooted up with bellyfuls of juicy water weeds. Now across the rushy river, on a hill the other side, lived a mean Tyrannosaurus and his grim and grisly bride. And they shouted, "Up with hunting!" And they shouted, "Up with war!" And they shouted, "Up with bellyfuls of duck-billed dinosaur!" But the two Tyrannosauruses, so grisly, mean and grim, couldn't catch the duck-billed dinosaurs because they couldn't swim. And they muttered, "Down with water!" And they muttered, "Down with wet!" And they muttered, "What a shame that bridges are not invented yet." Now, a little Compsognathus, but for short we'll call her Comp, found a duck-bill egg and stole it from a nest beside the swamp, and she swam with it and ran with it and murmured, "Clever me!" And what the baby Comps be thrilled with duck-bill egg for? Tea! She dropped the egg in terror and went running for her life from the mean Tyrannosaurus and his grim and grisly wife. And the duck-bill egg went rolling, and at last it came to rest in, of all unlikely places, the Tyrannosaurus's nest. Now, Mother T had great big jaws and great enormous legs, but her brain was rather little, and she couldn't count her eggs. And she sang, "Hatch out, my terrors, with your scaly little tails and your spiky little toofies and your scary little nails." Out hatched babies 1 and 2 as perfect as could be. But Mother T was horrified by baby number 3. She grumbled, "He looks weedy." And she grumbled, "He looks weak." She grumbled, "What long arms, and his mouth is like a beak." "He just needs feeding up," said Dad, and gave the babe some meat. The first 2 gulped and guzzled, but the third refused to eat. He said, "I'm really sorry." He said, "I simply can't." He said, "That meat looks horrible. I'd rather eat a plant." "A plant!" yelled Mum in horror, and Dad said, "Get a grip." His sisters found a name for him, Tyrannosaurus Strip, and they shouted, "Up with hunting!" And they shouted, "Up with war!" And they shouted, "Up with bellyfuls of duck-billed dinosaur!" Poor Tyrannosaurus Strip tried hard to sing along, but the others yelled, "You silly Drip, you've got the words all wrong." He hooted, "Down with hunting!" And he hooted, "Down with hooted, "Down with bellyfuls of duck-billed dinosaur." Drip's sisters soon grew big enough to hunt with Dad and Mum, but they turned on Drip and told him, "You're not fierce enough to come." And he cried, "They've gone without me." And he cried, "Alack a day." He cried, "This doesn't feel like home. I'm going to run away." So he ran off to the river, where he saw a lovely sight. A herd of duck-billed dinosaurs all hooting with delight. They hooted up with rivers. They hooted up with reeds. They hooted up with bellyfuls of juicy water weeds. And he stood there on the bank. A sudden urge took hold of him. He jumped into the water and discovered he could swim. And the duckbills came to greet him by the Ruffy's river's edge. And they hooted, "Nice to see you." And they hooted, "Have some veg." And Drip, who was delighted that they hadn't run away, ate bellyfuls of water weeds and played with them all day. Then he gazed into the river and asked, "Who, oh who, is that creature in the water?" And they laughed and said, "It's you." That night, the lightning cackled and a storm blew down a tree and it fell across the river and the tees cried out, "Yippee!" And they shouted up with hunting, and they shouted up with war, and they shouted up with bellyfuls of duck-billed dinosaur. Drip's sisters stepped onto the bridge, but then began to frown, for there in front of them stood Drip, who yelled, "Look out! Look down!" And they looked into the water, and they each let out a yelp! And one cried, "Water monsters!" and the other one cried, "Help!" Their mother scolded, "Nonsense!" and she joined them on the tree. Then she looked into the water and exclaimed, "Good gracious me!" The three of them stood trembling, and Dad said, "Get a grip. You're all of you as drippy as Tyrannosaurus Drip." She strode onto the bridge and scoffed, "I bet there's nothing there." Then he looked into the water and jumped into the air. And now the duckbills hooted when he landed with a crash, and the tree bridge broke, and 4 Tyrannosauruses went splash. And spluttering and clanging to the branches of a tree, they went whooshing down the waterfall and all the way to sea. And the duckbills hooted happily. They hooted, "Hip, hip, hip! Hooray for the heroic one and only Tyrannosaurus Drip."